Welcome to Second Take, the show that focuses on the issues behind the news. From profit warnings to collusion, it has been a week of trauma for the South African construction fraternity. Engineering News editor Terence Creamer joins me today to discuss the developments. Terence, welcome to Second Take. It all started last Friday with Mariaan issuing a profit warning. Can you fill us in on the state of the construction industry as things stand?
Well, I think it's best to describe the state as a very unhappy one. As you say, the profit warning came out from Mariaan last week, suggesting that it's probably going to fall into an interim loss position for the first 6 months to the end of December, and said that its earnings would fall year on year by about 30 to 45%. That's a significant drop. It was followed by an Avenge statement later, which said, look, we're also going to have a fall in year-on-year earnings for that interim period by about much more modest, 15 to 20%. But the Mariaan one really jolted the market and reminded us of what the executives have been saying over the last few months, that things are tough and are not going very well in the construction industry, not only in South Africa but in the Middle East. The Mariaan warning, I think, was treated by the market with a bit of unhappiness as well, because it's an issue of the way they've accounted for claims that they've made. They've got these claims against certain projects, the Dubai Airport being one, the Gautrain being another, and Eskom's Medupi and Kusile being the latest one coming into the mix, where they say there have been massive scope changes and variations. They made certain provisions in their accounts to recover that revenue, but that is a subject, it seems, of some dispute. And they therefore have to impair those revenues that they were expecting, and they're not actually going to account for a lot of those Kusile and Medupi revenues in this first half. So we're going to see them report later in the year, I think next month, or later this month, and give us some insight as to how big that impairment is. So it's an issue of accounting, but also there's an issue of, the state of the industry at the moment is not a healthy one, and we're seeing that the order books are not really ticking up as they were a few years ago. We're still in this sort of post-World Cup malaise period. And there's a feeling that, we're going to be in this period of slow tender awards, slow new contract awards, and sort of activity at the sort of lower end of the margin scale until probably around 2012, 2013.
Terence, but these construction companies aren't mere victims, as the Competition Commission has exposed this week.
Yes, I think they emerged as the villains very much this week, with 65 cases of bid rigging having been investigated by the Commission. And the Commission basically said this is endemic. It's an endemic problem, anti-competitive behaviour, collusion, and on the construction materials side, some price fixing as well. So the construction industry came out not looking at all good this week. In fact, a traumatic week on the earnings front, or the profit warning front, and even more traumatic week in terms of, what are the ethics and the values that are underpinning the South African construction industry, which we must say, has quite a good reputation in terms of the quality of product, and had quite an iconic year in 2010. I mean, they delivered the World Cup stadiums, the World Cup associated infrastructure on time, not on budget, and that's part of the unhappiness. I think there's this view that things did escalate around the World Cup, and now the view is, how much of this was just profiteering and collusion and bid rigging, and how much of this was genuine escalation. So definitely there's not much sympathy out there for the construction industry at the moment. There's a feeling that these guys have cheated the South African public and the taxpayer, and people want them to come clean.
Terence, all of this is happening at a time when government wants to scale up construction and wants to build industries around infrastructure rollout. Do you think that aspiration has been undermined?
Well, I think the trust relationship between the client, which is government, and the construction industry is not at a very good place at this point. Now we're seeing, for instance, the construction industry is very unhappy with the clients because they feel the projects that are being brought into the mix are underprepared, under-designed, under-engineered, and then we're having these massive scope and variation changes, which is leading to these delays and these fighting over, what claims, which I think in the current context, and Brian Bruce made this point of Mariaan Roberts, in the current context, the recourse is really through the FIDIC contract, you go through a period of dispute. Sometimes those are settled, and under the Eskom Medupi build, there's a process where claims are being put in, and Eskom has confirmed there are a number of claims, and some of those will be settled, but some are disputed, and this can take a very long time before an arbitration process reaches a finding where money can flow. So on the one hand, the construction industry is not that happy with the client, being the public sector, and we saw that again with the consulting engineers just this week with their annual report saying, there's very weak capital project planning capability within government. That weak capability is due to a lack of technical leadership within government, with a real migration of skill at that level. The sort of old style town planner, really that career has been all but decimated over the last few years, and we're not seeing that technical leadership out of government departments and municipalities. So you see the aspiration or the projects that come, the terms of reference are very poorly written. So there's that lack of, that breakdown of trust there. And then on the other side, the client, how can they trust the construction sector when there's all these allegations of bid rigging and collusion? So I think we're not in a very happy space at the moment. All I do know is that when the new growth path eventually does come out in its final version, and there will be iterations of this because there's going to be a social engagement around what is currently a framework, infrastructure and infrastructure delivery is going to be a core component. It's seen as an important place to create jobs, and it's seen as a catalyst for industrial development. So we need to have some sort of meeting of the minds here. We need to have a discussion between engineers and government about how the trust relationship can be rebuilt, as well as how the contracting environment can be improved so that we don't have these massive time delays and cost variations on every project, from Medupi Power Station through to a new multi-product pipeline, through to municipal infrastructure that's being built. We have to find some way of bringing the engineer into government's trust, having government's ear, understanding what technically is needed within municipalities, government departments and state-owned enterprises, so that we can really put the 846 billion infrastructure rollout on a much firmer footing than it is, because we need that to be on a firm footing for not just for the construction industry, but this facilitates economic growth in the long term, which in the end will facilitate employment creation, which is our biggest challenge. And we also need a very thriving construction industry to attract the sort of level of engineering talent that government is talking about. 30,000 engineering graduates by 2014. Everyone says it's a pipe dream. But if you don't have a thriving construction economy, there's no way you're going to attract the best and the brightest.
Terence, thank you very much. That is the Second Take show for this week. Thank you for watching, and join us again next time for more news analysis.